Okay, so this is going to be a video about my level 86 whirlwind barb. Alright, so where are we with this? Put some sound on. Okay, so the whirlwind barb, one of the most classic builds on Diablo 2. You all know the skills: max whirlwind. I put a point in frenzy because I dual wield, and we'll get into that. War cries, max BO, one in the battle command. And this all the same, max your mastery, one of the other ones, and then just kind of as many as you need into natural resistance, and then pump the rest into shout. So let's talk about the gear. So as you can see, I mostly dual wield on this character. I do have a shield set up, and I'll show you that, but first, let's just do this. So my main weapon, which I use dual wielding or not, Grandfather Colossus Blade. This used to be like one of the best items in the game before all these rune words were released. Which I like the rune words, I'm not knocking them, but on the single player game, they're expensive to make. It's hard to find those little runes, and it's hard to find this, but I did find it. I found it in Worldstone Keep one day, I think, just off an elite pack. And it's a pretty decent roll, actually. 227 ED, but I think the range is 150 to 250, so it's pretty good. And yeah, you just never get a chance to use this weapon on Battle.net, or you could, but it's just on Battle.net. It's not a weapon that's ever going to be best in slot. It's just not as good as a breath of a bot. Breath of Dying, and but this is the great thing about single players. You get a chance to use all these like really good items that just don't see play on Battle.net. And this is like a dope item. Like, it's super good. Max damage. It has like huge damage. You kind of got to put a shell in it for the attack speed. Bonus to attack rating. $20 tributes. Like, that's pretty good. 80 to life. This thing actually adds a lot of life between the vitality bonus and the straight life bonus. Let's see how much of course I don't have BO on, which would magnify it, but just 200 right there. I'll talk about the gloves. So I use Gauleams. Yeah, probably your best choice would be an Ariats, but like I haven't found one. I found one Ariats and it's ethereal, and there's a whole. I talk about this on my Throwbug video, but like it's a whole deal. But yeah, this is a super. Honestly, Gauleams. Like I just got to do a little ode to Gauleams. One of the best helmets in the game, honestly. 30 FHR, 35 crushing blow, 15 deadly strike as if it wasn't good enough, and then some 15 strength, why not? The defense is pretty decent. Level 34. Level 34 level requirement. Like, it's so good. It's so good. It's like, if you're a melee character, like every melee character, this is probably in their top 5 best helmet choices. And you see I put a RAL in it. I do actually need the fire resistance. That was just a cheap way to get it. Yeah, so High Lords, Dual Ravs, Verdungos, Gore Riders, and check it out. So when you're dual wielding, you're going to need some damage reduction. And I found this levy, which actually is, I think, a near perfect roll. The straight defense bonus is a little low, but I think the enhanced defense is, I think the max is 200, right? So that's 5 off from perfect. The strength is a perfect roll. The damage reduction is 1 off from perfect. So that is like super good. And if you're dual wielding, I mean, you could use like a shaft stop. You could shaft shop or whatever. But that's a good one. But I think this is like, it's just nice, and it has a high strength requirement, but then again, so does my weapon, so like that works for me. I actually do have a sweet jewel that has minus 15 requirements and 30 fire res, which I could use to replace the RAL, and then put something else on the helm, put in here, and that would be like, that would save me I think like maybe 20 or 30 strength. That would be dope. But let's get into some of the more controversial, well, not controversial, but some of the harder choices. So my second weapon is a silence. This is not that hard a choice, really. So first of all, let's just start $2 skills. Alright, that's dope. Like, I would use this weapon if it didn't do that, but that's just a great, nice little bonus, especially because you don't get it on your helmet or my armor. So it's great to get those plus skills from somewhere, because plus skills on a Barb are really good. You know, it just increases literally every stat, because you have these great passives and war cries and stuff, so it's just super good. Increased attack speed, I like they both have 20 increased attack speed, they're both class split, so I like it's a good symmetry. Faster hit recovery. You see, it's a very defensively oriented weapon, which is good. Alright, because the dual wield, the reason you dual wield is to increase the damage output, right? But you just need to beef up on your defense. So that's why you use a levy, and that's also why you use a silence. So looking further down, 75 all resistance. So I have better resistances in my dual wield setup than I do in my with my one-handed shield setup. And 11% mana stolen. So when you're a whirlwind Barb, you definitely need mana steal, and you could use quite a bit. Honestly, so that's great to have. Hit blinds target. You know, that's actually it's actually kind of more useful than you might think. You might just like ignore a skill like that, but honestly, like you're whirling all these guys. You're whirling 5 enemies. You could hit blind target on all of them, and then they're just standing there. They're literally just standing there waiting around. You know, so that's dope. And on top of the mana steal, you get 2 mana after each kill, which is nice. Like you might not, especially when you're doing all this damage for each kill. Like it doesn't take that many whirlwinds to get a kill, you know. And in one whirlwind, you could get multiple ones. So this could cut. You know, it totally depends on how many enemies, but that could cut your mana cost. And by the way, it's a pretty high mana cost, so that can cut your mana cost by like, you know, who knows, like 10%, 20%, 40% almost, like just that 2 mana after each kill alone. So yeah, this is a great weapon. Just for it just gives so many defensive skills, and yet allows you that offense because allows you to dual wield because it gives you so many defensive bonuses. Other choices for this slot that would be good, like I think the Bul-Kathos Colossus blade would be good. Other than that, like a Cranked Vomir or something, that sword, maybe. But honestly, this is probably your best choice, you know. Unless you're like super tweaked out and you just have like 2 Breath of the Dying. Whatever, you know, this is a single player game. I'm not talking about those crazy good options here. I'm talking about things that are like somewhat realistically achievable. And silence is actually fairly realistically achievable. You can see the base here is actually only has 7 enhanced damage, so it's not super good. But like an Ist and the Vex are the highest runes in it. It's pretty doable to do that. You know, an Ist you can get from Forge. A Vex is 2 gulls. You can get a gull from a Forge. It's like pretty doable. And you could find these things. You know, you could find an Ist from Countess. So like, so those things are pretty doable. This is the other maybe perhaps controversial choice for the build. So the thing about Whirlwind is it only uses the increased attack speed from your main weapon. So the stuff you have on gloves, you know, I do have increased attack speed on my High Lords, but that's because, you know, what else are you going to do? Maybe a Metal Grid, but I haven't found a Metal Grid. So this is like your best choice for a High Lord, for Amulet anyway, even if not considering the increased attack speed. But like I said, I do use Frenzy, so it is nice to have some increased attack speed. But you'll notice I don't have Life Leech anywhere else, so I kind of have to get it from my gloves. You know, maybe you can get it from a ring. I do have a couple nice Life Leech rings, but I don't want to give up the attack rating from 2 Ravenfrost because it's just too good. So the reason I use Dracules, and there are other options you could pursue, like you could get some, like, the lifesteal on this is super low, but like you could use something like this in conjunction with a String of Ears, and you get your tap that way. Or you use Soul Drainers, which are good. They're nice because that minus 50 defense monster per hit, believe it or not, that actually like does something. That actually like has an effect, and it's pretty good. And I tried using these for a long time, but the reason I use Dracules, and I think they're the best choice, are first of all, and by the way, the reason that you might think they're silly is because with whirlwind, these CTC skills, you know, you can't cast life tap using whirlwind. It will never cast. You know, sometimes you frenzy a group of enemies and it'll cast, and then you can leech from it from whirlwind once it's cast, but you can't cast it with whirlwind. Okay, but the reason I do it is, first of all, the lifesteal is quite high, 10%. I don't think that's even the max on these gloves, but these are just kind of the best pair I had lying around. And then 25% open wounds. That's pretty good. Whirlwind, open wounds and whirlwind is a good combo, okay? Because you're whirlwinding all around, and so you hit an enemy over here, and then you're on the other side of the map, and he's just you're not doing damage to him. But if you have the open wounds, he's bleeding out, and then you get back to him, he has a little less health, and they just have, you have to think of these small advantages that accumulate. So all these monsters that you hit over here, you come back and then you come back around, they all have a little less health, and then maybe you kill them in one hit rather than 2 hits, and then so it's just all these small benefits that can accumulate. So open wounds is really good with whirlwind. 12 to strength, that's just nice, especially when you have super high strength requirement stuff. Silence is nice because it actually has a hell rune in it, so it has minus 20 requirement, so that's not much, but grandfather has a high requirement, levy has a high requirement, and also 8 life after kill. So in addition to the high life stolen, you get 8 life after each kill. And I just talked to you about mana after kill. Quadruple that from the gloves. Alright? So that's like pretty nice. And so I did try the Dracula setup, but in certain situations with Drax, I'm just not quite leeching enough life. It's just a little too much, So I would like to make this work, but I think Drax are just a little bit better. Charms, standard. I kind of am low on like melee charms, so you'll see a lot of these are not that great, except this one is good. I found that on this character actually. So I have a mastery to Integral Cries. That's just kind of like to fill up space, because I just don't have that many like melee charms. This is pretty crappy. You see, like it's a grand charm that does less max AR than a small charm. Like that's, but it works. So, and the shield setup, I'll show you that. So, yeah, I think that's it. And then use concentrate rather than... I actually started this Barb off as a concentrate Barb, because I really wanted to do like the Storm Shield grandfather like thing. But the damage with this setup is good. And I beat the game on this setup, and it's beyond viable. It's a good build. But it's just not quite as fun. You just don't do as much damage as you do with dual wielding. So dual wielding is like super awesome. And I do throw on this Mana Steel ring, which is pretty nice if you check it out. Max AR, mana stolen, strength, a little bit of mana, whatever, and then mana after each kill, which I just talked about, which is like, pretty nice. It's not 2 mana, but it's 1 mana. So, it's just these little things, these little advantages that pile up, That's what Diablo 2 is all about. You just get a little better and a little better and a little better. And then I use Duress as the armor. This is a pretty crappy Duress. Well, the stat rolls are okay, but like the base armor is like pretty low. Like this was the first like Duress I ever made, like probably a couple years ago, like literally on my Zealer when I was just like farming pits because I could not even handle Act 2 or like even the latter stages of Act 1 on my Zealer, and I like found an room, and this was like the best armor I could make for him. But yeah, I'll switch back. So I do keep a demon limb, but on this guy, which I'll use sometimes, and I keep the Ort runes for like repairing, because this shit gets like expensive to repair. Actually, yeah, I actually had totally forgot about the whole Ort rune thing for like the longest time. But let's get into some gameplay here. All right, so I'll sell my Merc. Look at that, dope. I'll go down here. On my Merc, it's kind of my standard setup, but instead of a Gaulines, I use a Rock Stopper. And the reason I do that is, okay, first of all, Rock Stopper, similar to Gaulines, like, it's, honestly, Rock Stopper, this is like endgame equipment. Honestly, Rock Stopper is a totally hell viable, like, I mean, it's a super good helmet. It's like kind of like a mini Crown of Ages. And it's honestly not even that much worse than Crown of Ages, to be honest. You know, faster hit recovery, vitality, huge resistance, huge resistance. The resistance rolls are not even that good on this particular one, with the exception of fire, which is what you really need for your Merc, because like the Hydras and shit in a Bale run kill your Merc all the time, and then damage reduced. So the reason I have a Rock Stopper on my Merc for this guy is because when you're whirlwinding all around, you know, your Merc can just be standing there, just fighting all these guys off on his own, way there in the back, and you're not really there to like distract monsters from him that much. So like the Rock Stopper, combined with the 4K life, just the Rock Stopper, means he can basically survive anything. Like this Merc very rarely dies, very rarely. So that's really all I need, because I do plenty of damage on my own souls. Usually I do keep a T-Gods in my stash for souls, but like there aren't that many in this case, so I'll just power on through. Oh my god, souls, it's just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. I said this on another video, but it's just like so crazy how like literally, if you want to decide if you're, wow, they did do a lot of damage to me actually. If you're trying to gauge whether your build is hell viable or not, then literally the question is, can you handle souls? Oh my god, this is so bad. Oh my god. Wow. I was hoping for an easier map for a video. I don't want to go through all this right now. Jesus Christ, this is a terrible this is a terrible monster roll when you get both 2 out of 3. You know, every level on Worlds from Keep will have 3 monster types, and they're kind of taken randomly out of a hat or whatever, or you know, and sometimes you get the ghosts and the that are physical immune, and you get the goddamn these guys, which are also physical immune, and that is just such a drag. I can't tell you. Okay, so you know, normally for the purposes of making this video not atrociously long, I'm gonna just like skip these guys. But like, rest assured, you can kill them if need be. Which need be. I really try to like not skip. I really try to make my build so that they can take on anything, you know, without having to, you know, hopefully without even having to like switch gear or anything. Oh crap! It's not terrible for level 27, but yeah. Look at this. You know, I got amp damage on. These guys are pretty tough, and the damage output is just insane. That's another thing about using Gaulims, is actually Crushing Blow and Whirlwind. I mean, Crushing Blow is always great, but Whirlwind, you hit many. You hit a lot. So I don't know. I don't think Crushing Blow is. I don't know. Is it penalized on Whirlwind? It might be, but you hit a lot, so it's kind of like a lot of little hits. It's just that type of skill. So with the Crushing Blow, it's like very powerful combination. Like you just, I mean, you'll see. I like mow shit down with this guy. Like it's pretty good. Yeah. And the other thing about putting Rock Stopper on your Merc is so he'll survive longer, and if he survives longer, then he takes more hits. And if he takes more hits, then he has a higher chance of casting Fade. And once he casts Fade, he's just like beyond invincible. Because at that point he'll have like 25 damage reduction. He actually has full res, so he has overstacked res. And curses. Once you have Fade, curses don't last as long. You see how quickly that Decrepify disappears on my Merc? Look at that. It stays on me, but it comes off him easy. So yeah, once you cast Fade, it's just like, he's just like unbelievable. Very helpful. You really got to pay attention to your Merc, and he's a Might Merc rather than a Holy Freeze Merc. I I'm in it because, you know, he complements my damage, and I don't need the defense, really, that comes from having a Holy Freeze smirk, because my gear is so good. And that's another reason you could afford to, use it when you put a Rock Stopper on it. And so, you know, it's one of those trade-offs. You could put, like, a Gauleen's and then a Holy Freeze aura, or you could put a, Might aura, and then a Rock Stopper. So, you know, kind of, you got to keep an eye on your offensive defensive balance. Yeah, my life is not super high. 2.6. That's like, yeah, you know, it's like decent. You know, if it was at 3K, that would be like, that'd be good. But 2.6, you know, it does fine. Like, I'm rarely in any sort of danger. But yeah, with your Merc at 4K, it's just like nuts. Because life, you know, you have to think of life. Life is, having more life is damage reduction. You know, basically almost everything in this game kind of boils down to damage reduction. But if you have more life, you know, someone takes 100 life from you. Well, if you have 1,000 life, that's 10%. That's a big deal. If you have, you know, 2,000 life, that's 5%. So you're taking half the damage as a result of having doubled your life, percentage-wise. So, you know, more life is just basically damage reduction. You have to think of it that way. You know, and if you're ever whirlwinding around on your Barb and you're going, oh my god, why am I taking so much damage right now? It's probably because your BO has come off and you have to keep on top of that. But you really shouldn't have to worry about that so much. Especially once you start putting mad skills points in shout, like my BO, you know, lasts the whole 6 minutes on its own. And we're done with this bail run. Like, that's quick, right? You see how sometimes bail can get... This is why I have 2 rows of mana potions. Oh, God. Sometimes bail could, like, you know, like I said, use a lot of mana on Whirlwind. And bail steals your freaking mana, so it's just, like, it's super annoying. Okay, not hitting him so much. Oh wow, have I had concentrate on this whole time? Jesus Christ. Yeah, it just goes to show you mostly use whirlwind. I got a ring. Wand. And check this shit out. What is all that? Crap. Yeah, that is crap. And a little note about using whirlwind. So, you know, you don't want to do this thing where you just like see a group of monsters and you just like go straight through. Like, that's not the best way to use whirlwind. You know, you kind of want to do this. I'm sure many people have written this, but you kind of want to do this kind of like triangular motion. Like, I'm not even doing it particularly well here. But there is like a little bit of a skill to using whirlwind, and but you do have to be conscious about using up your mana. So if you do a lot of like you can go like this with your whirlwind, and that's actually like pretty effective. But you know, every time you click, you're using 24 mana. So you know, just be conscious of that. Also, using Frenzy, if you hit... So look how much fast I killed the guy. You hit Frenzy a couple times, and you Whirlwind, like, as fast as your with your run speed, and Frenzy increases your run speed. So that's, like, a nice little... It's actually, like, kind of nice for level 9. You see that? These are the kind of things you gotta pay attention to in a single-player game. Okay, I shouldn't have done that because I haven't delivered. I'm actually going to keep on that, and I'm just going to... It's going to be one of those items I keep for a little bit and then throw out later, because when am I going to use it? Okay, any other things? I think I mostly covered it. But yeah, it's like a super fun build. You know, It's fun. You look all green and shit. And yeah. Wow, I feel like there was one other thing I was gonna say, but I don't remember. Oh, physical immunes? Yeah, you saw in that thing, but how I deal with physical immunes is I pretty much use Berserk, and you know, your Merc has Decrepify, but so that's useful, and you could just kind of whirlwind things that he's Decrepified, and you can do that. But on certain things, like especially if they're like the ghosts steal your mana, so like whirlwinding through them is not like totally practical. Um, and you kind of have to use a lower mana skill. And Berserk is good, especially when you have Grandfather. Like my Berserk, what was that? You know, 5.2. It's like 5k, which is like pretty high damage for single player. Anyway, that's it for this.